What's going on, guys? Bobby Betts Fights back at it for another week of breakdowns, this time for UFC Jacksonville. We got Josh Emmett facing off against Emmett Topuria in the main event. I'm going to go ahead and jump into the recap from last week, but before I do, please follow your boy on the socials, on Twitter, on YouTube, and at betmma.tips. It's Bobby Betts Fights. Real simple. So, jumping into last week, another monster week for us. The week before UFC 289 was ridiculous, and now we have another 4-1 week. Didn't have as big of underdogs on this card, but still nice profit. So we had 3.06 units of profit for around $152.99, 61% return on investment. I'm going to go ahead and run down these real quick. So first straight bet, the only loss that we had was Gabriela Fernandez against Teresa Bleda. Bleda was able to hold her down for 3 rounds. Same thing Justina Vicious was able to do against Gabriela Fernandez. Thought she might have worked on it. Thought she might have game planned a little bit better. She did hurt Bleda a couple of times on the feet. Still has great striking, but man, does she have porous takedown defense. So that was an L. It was plus 205 odds. So, I think it closed right around plus 190. So got some CLV. Not a bad bet. Moving on, we had Kyung Ho Kang facing off against Christian Quinones. For plus 144, we were able to cash that one. Kyung Ho Kang ended up dropping Christian Quinones. Looked sharp on the feet as per usual. Quinones caught him a little bit and rushed in, and Kyung Ho Kang made him pay. Dropped him. Perfect club and sub. Took the back. Rear naked choke. Cash the plus 144 for the boys. Love to see that. And then we had a parlay. We had Jimmy Flick versus Alessandro Costa. We had Costa to win. I was minus 260. Costa just tore up Jimmy Flick's legs. Flick just ended up going down to the ground, and Costa finished him on the ground. He looked all the bit of minus 260. He looked more like minus 500 in that fight. Flick was overmatched. Got to go back to the drawing board. And then in the main event, Marvin Vettori, Jader Cannonier, the over 2.5 rounds. Barber got hurt early. But, man, does that boy got a granite chin. I will give it to him. So that was minus 330 combined. We got parlay odds of minus 124. We cashed that for around $40 profit. And then the other 2 straight bets that we had was Manuel Torres against Nicolas Mota. Manuel Torres, I was drinking the juice at minus 180. We were sipping on some gin and juice. That's a heavy play for me. And we ended up... Well, I have it in as 1 unit, but it was 1.5 units. I had $75 on Manuel Torres. That's neither here nor there. That's me being an idiot for putting it in wrong. But regardless, El Loco Torres is a violent individual. That lead elbow that dropped Mota and put his lights out was absolutely vicious. Always a pleasure to watch Loco Torres. You just simply love to see that violence. And then the other play was Armen Petrosyan at plus 126 against Christian Duncan. Another one where he opened around plus 150, plus 160, and he dropped all the way down to like plus 115. There was some buyback on him late, back to plus 136, but again, you just picked apart Christian Duncan. Christian Duncan, someone made a comment that he looked like he was like a Tekken character, like in the octagon, and it was pretty accurate because, a bunch of spinning stuff, singular attacks. That's not going to work on Petrosyan. He's just going to pick you apart. He's going to jump in with the combination. He's going to be able to chop that leg, and he's just going to put together an all-around good performance. So a dub there, plus 126. When you add it all up, a little bit over 3 units profit. So that puts us at... For the year, we're at 28.19 units in profit, total of 8% return on investment, and that equals $1,409 and some odd change. You can check the math on that, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the card. I'm going to go ahead and roll through all these fights. We're going to start with the first fight on the prelims, roll all the way up through the main event, and let's kick it off. So first one that we got here, we got Cody Brundage is facing off against Cedric Dumas. So this is an interesting line because it opened up even and Cody Brundage just exploded on the scene, got all the way up to minus 215. There's some buyback on Dumas, so as it stands right now, 60 cents moving in Brundage's favor on that one. As far as the fight's concerned, I think the line's a little cooked on Brundage. I don't think he's a very reliable fighter. That being said, I don't think SD Dumas is a reliable fighter either. I can see Brundage being the side. I do think Brundage is the side. He was able to hurt Rodolfo Vieira in his last fight and almost finished him. Vieira is able to push through. It's just Brundage bad fight IQ jumping on that guillotine late, and we knew Vieira is going to slip out of that, and then you're on the ground with Rodolfo Vieira on top of you, and that's not a place you want to be. I think Dumas looked a lot worse in his previous performance against Josh Fremd. I think Fremd bested him in all areas of MMA and ended up getting the submission and a guillotine choke Dumas couldn't get out of. he's pretty electric, pretty quick twitch, but as far as like his striking's concerned, pretty basic. I think Brundage will be able to hurt him. I think Cody will be able to wrestle him too, get him down, and as long as he can stay consistent, good fight IQ, stay on top and not rush something, I think Brundage is going to be able to get the win. Wouldn't be surprised if it was inside the distance, sub, or even some ground and pound. I don't think Dumas is going to be able to switch position like Ola Jacek did against Brundage. I think he's going to be a fish out of water, so I'm going to go with Brundage there as my pick. Emmers facing off against Jack Jenkins. So in this fight, Emmers, 25 cents of movement his way. He opened up closer to minus 175. He's minus 200 right now. Jack Jenkins a dog at plus 170. I think this is going to be a closer fight than the line has it. I was surprised that the line was moving towards Emmers. I can see it because he's had some great all-around performances, and outside of, getting his knee ripped off by Sabatini after he hurt him on the feet, I mean, he's had some pretty solid performances, even when he loses. Split decision to Giga Chikadze is going to get a lot of people's attention. He's a very accomplished kickboxer. Last time out, that his name's eluding me right now, but he put together a great performance against a guy who was undefeated at the time, kind of a padded record outside of the UFC, but still came in and got the job done. Cerebral fighter, knows when to take it to the ground, great takedown defense, and very good on the feet. Jack Jenkins on the flip side, also very good all-around fighter, good in the scrambles on the ground. Against Don Chanis, he really showed that he can stand up to a guy who's going to be looking to take it to the ground. Good takedown defense, good on the ground, even got on top. Great ground and pound. We know that in the fight against Linares in the Contender Series when he split him wide open with that ground and pound. Those elbows, they're vicious. And known for his leg kick. He's going to chop those legs, and it's a very heavy leg kick as well. If he went back to the well a little bit more with those against Chanis, I think he could have finished the fight. I think he's going to be looking to do the same thing against Jamal Emmers. So I think it's going to be a close fight. Wouldn't be surprised if Jenkins stole around, but I'm going to go ahead and go with Jamal Emmers. That's the way the line's moving. I think he's just a tad bit more athletic than Jack Jenkins. So going ahead and moving on, we got Trevor Peek versus Chepe Mariscal. So this one has some crazy line movement as well, because Chepe opened up right around plus 155, plus 160 on some books, and he's down to plus 105. It got as close as a pick 'em at minus 110, and then there's some buyback on Peak later. So for Chepe, as it stands right now, about 50 cents worth of movement going his favor. So that's a lot of line movement right there. This is a dangerous fight. I think this has got potential to be fight of the night, to be honest with me, because both guys are tough as nails. Everyone talks about Trevor Peek's toughness, but if you go back and watch Chepe Mariscal fight, the dude's the epitome of toughness. Got dropped by Steve Garcia, beat up multiple times, was able to wrestle and get out of it. The only reason that fight was stopped is because of a cut on the back of the head while Chepe was in the middle of trying to take Garcia down in round 2. Ref ended up calling it a TKO. He did take some damage in that. He is liable to getting hit, but he's tough as nails, and he can fight through pretty much anything. Trevor Peek, cut from the same cloth. His Contender Series fight against Malik Lewis, he came as close as a human being can get to being knocked unconscious in the first round, and Lewis was just going for the finish, able to survive it, able to land some of his own shots, and then just took over after Lewis was gassed and just put together an all-around dog performance. Last time out against Gonzalez as well, I mean, he was in and out. He's very unorthodox, but I think that's a good thing. A lot of people say that's a bad thing, but I think sometimes if you're too technical, it can work against you. If you're unorthodox, guys don't know the timing's off. They don't expect shots when they're expecting shots and vice versa. And I think that works to Trevor Peek's favor. Just a junkyard dog performance against Gonzalez again. Just made him fight his fight, chopped the legs, was able to pump some good jabs, some one-off shots, and then when it came time to throw those hooks and hammer fists, boy, was he ready to do so. So I got this. Honestly, a lot of people are taking the under in this. I think it's going to be an absolute pleasure to watch this fight. I think it's going to go over at least the 1.5 is going to hit. I don't know once we get towards the end of the second round or the third round, but man, if we get 3 rounds of this fight, it's going to be something special, let me tell you. So this one, I'm going to follow the line movement here. Like I always do, I'm going to trust some of the sharps. I'm going to go with Chepe Mariscal, and I also got a bet on him. I got him at plus 105, and I was liking that, and then when it moved down to minus 110, now it's back up at plus 105, so not much CLV. So we'll see how that plays out. When you go back and look at it, as much as I want to give Trevor Peek praise for his aggression, he also has his flaws. He's very liable to getting hit. He keeps his hands down at his hip, and he just fires from his hip. Chepe, cut from the same cloth. He's going to keep moving forward, but the difference between him is he's going to be able to work in the takedowns. I worry about him going up a weight class because it's 140. He's a 145er, but I think he's going to be able to get Peek down, and I think he's going to be able to be a heavier on top. than some of the previous guys that have fought Trevor Peek. I mean, Gonzalez was able to get him down, but he wasn't able to stay on top of him. Peek was able to muscle his way up. I think Chepe, just a little bit more technical with his grappling, is going to be able to have some more success down there once it hits the mat. So, Chepe's the pick. Go ahead and moving on. We got Zhumagulov. Finally got a fight for him after his opponents had been dipping out on him versus Joshua Van. So, in this fight, line's moving toward Zhumagulov, about 25 cents. He's up to minus 205 when Joshua Van's an underdog at plus 175 on the comeback. Another fight that I think is going to end up being close, but I think the all-around game of Zhumagulov is going to win out in the end unless Joshua Van can do some serious damage. I would say Joshua Van, very well-rounded fighter. He's a finisher to the nth degree, whether it's via submission or standing on the feet as a KOing guys. I really like his game. He's able to pick up on tendencies that guys have. So if you spam the same thing over and over, same combination, he's going to be able to counter you. Liked him off the back foot, throwing check hooks, and seems to always have his eyes open when he's on the feet. Very comfortable on the feet. On the ground, he's no slouch either. I think Zhumagulov, even though he does have those repetitive attacks that he goes to on the feet, is just going to be able to mix in the takedowns and just have that all-around performance and keep Van guessing. Whereas opposed to if it was a stand-up match, I would favor Van. But since this is an MMA match, the wrestling is Zhumagulov. You know, I'm sure it's like a Sambo background or, jiu-jitsu, what have you. That's going to win out in this fight. I think he's going to be able to mix it up. He's going to stay on top, and the first time that Zhumagulov goes to the judge's decision, and they all see it in his favor. So I'm going to go ahead and go with Zhumagulov on that one for the pick. Moving on, next fight, Tabitha Ricci versus Jillian Robertson. Line hasn't moved much, but it's moving in Ricci's favor. She opened minus 125. She's now minus 135. Jillian Robertson as the underdog plus 115 on the comeback. This fight, if they cancel each other out with the wrestling, like that sometimes has, and it stays on the feet, I favor Ricci. I don't think either one of them has great striking, but she's more aggressive, and I don't think Robertson offers much anything at all as far as an attack on the feet that's going to hurt Ricci. If anything, Ricci can just bite down on the mouthpiece and just kind of wing those hooks through whatever Robertson's going to throw. She's going to try to teep. She's going to throw those one-off shots. She's going to kick, but other than that, I think Ricci's got it covered on the feet, even though it's going to be kind of sloppy. If it goes to the ground, it's going to be pretty even. I worry about Jillian Robertson because she was able to cut down, one of the few times that I've seen someone cut down and have more success at that division in strawweight. So she's now going to be the bigger person, where flyweight, she was always smaller than her opponent for the most part. And Ricci is kind of on the smaller end of a strawweight. She's very strong, but stature-wise, she is small, but both really good on the ground. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts. It's going to be a back and forth. It's really going to depend on who can get on top and who can work that control time. It's tough to see if anyone's going to finish the fight because they're both so good on the ground. But Ricci did show out in her last performance against Jessica Penne. So I like Ricci. Thinking about a play, I haven't seen much of the line movement, so it's I'm like a little hesitant to pull it on Ricci, but it should be an interesting fight to say the least. Don't know which way it's going to go, but I don't see a finish in this one. Probably a decision, and my pick is Ricci. Whether or not I'm going to bet it is to be determined. We're going to go ahead and wait to see how it shakes out and what the line looks like on fight day, which is tomorrow. Moving on, we got Rebecki versus Radzhabov. It's another fight that I think is going to be a great fight, potential fight of the night. So Rebecki, he opened around a minus 125. He's up to minus 155 as it stands right now. So we're looking at 30 points of line movement in his favor. Radzhabov's a plus 135 underdog. So Radzhabov in his last fight, you know what you're getting when you're getting a Radzhabov fight. I mean, he's going to be able to take the fight to the ground. If he gets hurt on the feet, he's got good, I wouldn't call it panic wrestling, but he's cerebral enough to be able to grab a leg and kind of work from there. And if he gets you down, he can go ahead and recover and get that ride time. He's active on the ground. He's got good ground and pound. And yeah, he's just, you're going to have to defend the takedowns against Radzhabov. On the feet, he's going to wing those big hooks. He's going to look for that big overhand that he throws. Rebecki, a little bit more polished on the feet. I think he's quicker. I think he's got multiple attacks that he can throw at you on the feet. On the ground, he's no slouch either. I mean, he was fighting over in God, I forget the name of the promotion. It's not KSW, but it's another good promotion where he was the champ over there, and he's fighting all the Eves and the Avs, and he was just running right through them. Guys with great records. He's fought a great level of competition outside of the UFC. I think a lot of people are hinging a lot of stock in Rebecki on his last fight against Nick Fiore, where he ended up winning a decision, but he gassed himself out in the first round. Every other Rebecki fight before then, on the Contender Series and before that, there wasn't any. This gas tank wasn't really a question. I think it was just a matter of, he had a guy coming in on short notice. He thought he could go ahead and finish him. A guy who was coming up to lightweight, and Fiore just proved that he could take a beating. And he proved that he could take a beating, and he's tough in the Chase Hooper fight. He's just a guy that's tough to get out of there because you can't take him to the ground because he's good on the ground. He's good enough to get back up to his feet. And on the feet, he's got a granite chin. Granted, he doesn't have any striking whatsoever. It's all one pop shots and, try to get it to the ground. But yeah, I think Rebecki won the fight. It didn't help improve his stock, but I still think Rebecki should be able to get the job done. I think he's going to be able to defend some of the takedowns that Radzhabov has. I think Radzhabov will have success getting it to the ground, but Radzhabov is another guy who's known to gas later on in fights. So I think Rebecki this time around is going to conserve the gas tank a little bit better, and he's just going to be able to beat him up on the feet, keep it standing, and go ahead and win a decision. So I got Mateusz Rebecki. I got in on him at minus 130. Minus 130. So that's going to be another bet that I have in. And he is the pick, obviously. If I had bet on, he is the pick. So moving on to the next fight, we got Randy Brown versus Wellington Turman. So Randy Brown, what did he open at? I think he was minus 245, and money, a small amount is coming in on Wellington Turman as the dog. So Turman was at plus 205. He's now at plus 195, so 10 cents worth of movement going his way. Wellington's cutting down to welterweight. He's been at middleweight, and that's something that worries me because he doesn't have the greatest chin either, and now he's cutting all that weight. So Brown in this one, his stand-up doesn't really impress me. He doesn't really do much that I would consider a dangerous attack as far as finishing the fight. He kind of is just going to dance around the outside. He's really comfortable. He jabs. He's got good head movement. He's going to pump that jab. He's going to throw the two every once in a while to really mix in a power shot. But really, he does a lot of dancing and a lot of showmanship. But at the end of the day, you look back at his work rate and it's not that great. It's just a bunch of, like I said, jabs. He's good on the ground, and I think he's live for a submission against Turman, even though Turman's, is decent on the ground. I think a club and sub could be on deck, even though that depends on Brown hurting him. But Wellington, I just, I don't take a lot of stock in him cutting down to welterweight. His fights haven't been great. I think he's, I guess you could say a good all-around game. I don't really like his striking all that much. He was losing to Misha Shirkinov convincingly until he kind of threw up a Hail Mary submission and landed it. Which was kind of odd, but yeah, I don't think he's going to have much for Brown. I think Wellington might try to mix in the takedowns to get it to the ground, but I really see Randy Brown just stand on the outside, pumping those jabs, mixing in the two, might catch him every once in a while, and then mixing in his kicks to all ranges, chopping the legs, coming up to the midsection. But for the most part, I think it's just going to be kind of a boring match, to be honest with you, especially with Brown coming off a KO loss to Madalena. I think it's going to be more of I need to get back in the win column. So you're going to see a lot of kickboxing on the outside, a lot of defending takedowns, and he's going to win a decision. That's how I got it going. So I'm going with Randy Brown in this fight. Moving on, we got Neil Magney versus Phil Rowe. So Magney opened at minus 150, about 15 cents worth of movement. He's minus 165 after jumping up to about 170, 175 for a brief period of time. A little bit of buyback on Rowe. Rowe's the underdog at plus 140 on the comeback. So in this fight, the big thing is Rowe really, he's a pretty slow starter, and he's liable to getting taken down. And if you're in his face and don't give him much space, he gets uncomfortable. Orion Kosei had success doing that with just the pressure, the clinch, the takedown. You saw Jason Witt have success with that game plan until Rowe eventually got it back up, and that glass chin of Witt is just a little just got touched, and all of a sudden he went down. But you've seen guys have success with that pressure game plan against Phil Rowe. Nico Price, not so much. In the third round, yeah, he was he was working his way back into that fight. But Nico Price, also a slow starter. Takes him a while to get back into the fight. He needs to get punched a couple of times before he can really start moving. But I think in this one, Magney, I mean, that's kind of like the controlled aggression and, keeping him on the front foot and just kind of outworking him is how I see this fight going down. Kind of like what Gabe Green did. I think Magney's going to just, he doesn't have much pop in his hands, but he's going to avoid the big shots of Phil Rowe. He's going to be able to mix in a takedown and just kind of make it a grimy fight. Bring him to the mat, get that control time. Rowe doesn't have the best get-ups. He does get back up to his feet. But I just see Magney just rinsing and repeat, going back to that well and just outworking him in the clinch, outworking him. And just as the fight goes on, it's just going to be more Neil Magny. So I got him winning a pretty convincing decision. Death, taxes, and Neil Magny by decision. Just like good times. Just like all the old times, the times before. Neil Magny decisions. Bring us the money, baby. So anyway, I got Neil Magny as the pick, and I got a bet in on him as well. I got him at minus 150 early. Moving on to the main card, we got Brendan Allen versus Bruno Silva. So Brendan Allen, he opened minus 165. He's up to minus 190, so 25 cents worth of movement there. Bruno Silva's currently sitting at plus 160 as the underdog. I mean, this one's pretty clear cut. I think Allen should look to take the fight to the ground and use that good wrestling and jiu-jitsu that he has to stay on top, land some ground and pound, and just wear at Bruno Silva. Bruno Silva, he's going to want to keep it standing on the feet, and if Brandon Allen's not careful, he can absolutely get his lights put out because Bruno Silva is dangerous and has absolute cement blocks for hands. So, I mean, you go back and look at it, Bruno Silva, a lot of success with that game plan. The one guy who was able to kind of outwit him on that was Gerald Mearschart. He was able to just stay out of range. Bruno Silva got a little too aggressive, and he's overextending on his punches, and Mearschart was able to make him pay, ended up dropping him, and ended up submitting him in the third round, which is kind of odd because Mearschart isn't much of a striker and has a little bit of a glass chin himself. Brendan Allen, I think you got to look at that game plan and go back to that well, except you could even mix in more takedowns than Mearschart attempted in that fight. You can go to it early. You can go to it, for the rest of the fight. The more you zap on Silva's gas tank, the worse he's going to be on the feet, and you're going to really take the sting off those punches if you do that. So I got Brendan Allen here. I think, all he has to do really is fight smart, and he should be able to get that win against Bruno Silva. If he doesn't submit him on the ground, I think he can win a decision just with the ride time and mixing it up, chopping those legs with those kicks, using that Muay Thai, and just staying out of danger from those big shots that Silva's going to throw, those big hooks. So moving on, we got David Onama versus Gabriel Santos. So it's a line that kind of surprised me because Onama is such a big dog. People must be taking a lot of stock into that last performance against Landwehr. But anyway, Onama, plus 185 as it stands right now, 10 cents worth of movement in his favor, so he was plus 195 earlier. Santos as the favorite, minus 215. This one I see it playing out on the feet. I think Gabriel Santos had a really good showing against Leroy Murphy. Arguably won that fight. He's got good stand-up. He's got good boxing combinations. He can kick to all levels. He's no slouch on the ground either. Very, very good on the ground. I think Onama is athletic. I think he's got good pop in his hands. I think he can have a competitive fight against anyone, but I think at the end of the day, I think Gabriel Santos is going to be just a little bit too much for him. I can see Gabriel Santos possibly dropping Onama, and I can see it the other way around too. I think Onama's no slouch, but I think Santos is just all around a little bit better than Onama, and I can see him having a lot of success on the ground as well if he wants to take it there. So I'm going with Gabriel Santos as the pick in that one as we move on to our next matchup, which is Austin Lane versus Justin Tafa. So line hasn't moved at all in this one. It moved towards Tafa. I think he got up to minus 190, but it's back down to minus 175 and plus 150 for Lane as the dog, which is where it opened at. In this fight, I mean, Tafa, he's got that big left hand. He's going to be looking to land it. Dropped Barker Porter with it in his last fight. Then he get a performance bonus, which is absolutely crazy to me because that was a stone cold knockout in the first round. Like, what more does a guy got to do to get 50 Gs? You know what I'm saying? But Austin Lane, question marks in his game. I think he has the advantage in the wrestling here if he can get it to the ground. He's got good cardio. He can go. He's got a motor. He can go 5 rounds. He showed that in the Juan Adams fight. He was losing that fight to Juan Adams in the stand-up, but he was able to weather the storm, and Adams got tired, and he ended up finishing him in the 4th round. So Austin Lane has cardio, former NFL player. He's going to be around in the later rounds. which is, I think, the area that if he wants to win this fight, he's going to have to wear at Taffa. Like, he can't go out and leave himself open to get just dropped in the first, because Taffa, when he's fresh, is going to drop you and he's going to finish you. But as the fight wears on, it's going to be a faster paced fight than Taffa's fought before. Like, it's not going to be like a fight against Felipe, where it's kind of just them both kind of trading, kind of slow pace, like the fight that he wants to fight. Like, Austin Lane will push the pressure. He's going to have to do a lot of fighting up against the cage. Taffa, he's going to defend a lot of takedowns, and Lane's going to look to wear on him. So I think if Lane can avoid the big shot, I think he really has a shot here. I know a lot of people are taking stock into him getting knocked out in some of his previous fights, but he's been a lot more cerebral in his recent performances. He was able to get out of some bad positions in his fight against Richard Jacoby on the Contender Series when Jacoby took him down and had him mounted, but Jacoby looked like a fish out of water. Didn't know what to do once he got him in the mount. He didn't know whether he was trying to submit him or punch him, and then Lane reversed position, ended up finishing Jacoby. So in this one, I mean, Taffa, if it stays standing the whole time with no grappling, I would edge Taffa, but I really think Austin Lane's going to have a shot in this fight. I really think he's going to mix in the grappling, and even if Taffa defends it, I think he's just going to keep going back to the well, just wear on that gas tank, and I think he's going to be able to edge out a decision at the end of the day if he doesn't finish him in the later rounds. So I'll go with the dog here, Austin Lane, at plus 150. That is my pick. I don't have a bet on that fight yet. We'll see how it goes tomorrow. If I'm contemplating a bet, guys, just check my Twitter, Bobby Bets Fights. I'll be posting all of my plays before the card starts, so you can check. I'm looking to get at least 2 more plays in. Only got 3 on this card so far, so I know, a little boring, but we'll keep it moving. Next fight, we got Amanda Ribas versus Macy Barber. Amanda Ribas opened minus 165, 25 cents worth of line movement in her favor. She's now at minus 190. Macy Barber is the underdog at plus 160 on the comeback. So in this fight, Macy Barber is on a 4-fight win streak. Some of them a little controversial, like against Miranda Maverick, her most recent outing. I did think she won the fight against Andrea Lee, but just another controversial decision. The big thing with Macy Barber is this new fighting style where she kind of takes off the first round. Not so much against Andrea Lee, but in her previous performances, she kind of takes off the first round, kind of saves the gas tank, and then really tries to up the ante in the second and third round with the pressure and kind of eke out a decision. And against Amanda Ribas, it's that's going to be a tough task because she doesn't really slow down, especially no matter where the fight plays out. Like if it's on the feet, she's going to be able to strike for 3 rounds. If it goes to the grappling, she's using her judo to get it to the ground. I mean, she's going to be able to do that for 3 rounds. If you're mixing them up, she can do it for 3 rounds. She used to be a strawweight. She's moving up to flyweight. So she's got cardio for days. So it's tough for me to pick against Amanda Ribas because I think at the striking, they're pretty much similar. I think the mystique of Macy Barber's power after knocking out Jillian Robertson and, doing what she did, kind of went out the door after the Modafferi fight where, granted she had a knee injury, but after that, we haven't really seen that devastating power that Macy Barber was marketed at in the beginning of her career. Amanda Ribas, I'd say they're about close to even on the feet. I think Ribas can be a little bit more active and mix up the attacks. I think Barber is liable to headhunt a little bit more, and Ribas can go ahead and mix it up with the kicks, mix it up to all areas. And then the one thing that I think she excels the most in is just those opportunistic judo throws that she has with the wrestling. I think she's going to be able to get the fight to the ground, stay on top of Barber, and I think she can win a pretty convincing decision here. So I'm going to go with Amanda Ribas as my pick. Don't have a bet on it, but Ribas is the side. Moving on to our main event, we got Josh Emmett versus Ilia Topuria. Josh Emmett opened right around plus 270. He's at plus 285 now. Ilia Topuria had 15 cents worth of line movement as the favorite, so he's now up to minus 345. He opened minus 330. So in this one, I mean, Josh Emmett's getting pretty disrespected. I mean, he just fought for the interim belt against Yair, and granted, it wasn't his greatest performance. Ended up getting finished in the second round, but we know the guy still got pop in his hands, man. He showed that time after time, just knockdowns in every one of his fights leading up to the Yair performance. He's able to knock someone down. And Topuria, I mean, he's been on a tear. He's undefeated. Just absolute savage performances. What he did to Damon Jackson was just, if it wasn't in a cage, he would have been convicted of an assault charge. That's how vicious it was. Thank God the violence is sanctioned, because he dropped him and folded him like a sack of potatoes, dude, like a lawn chair. Same thing with Jai Herbert. Just another highlight reel knockout where he just folded him. It's just, he's got great boxing combinations on the inside, and he just tears guys up. And against Bryce Mitchell, he showed that he can defend the takedown as well. Stood in front of him and just beat him up. So he's a tough task for Josh Emmett, but at the same time, if Topuria is going to be staying in the pocket, I mean, Emmett has that big right hand, and he's got a ton of pop in his hands. I think this is just two guys, when an immovable force meets whatever the second part of it is. Two guys that are willing to bang and can put your lights out are going to bang it out. It's going to be a phenomenal fight, to be honest with you. It's tough to say in this one because I think Emmett's getting disrespected, but at the same time, just the all-around game of Topuria has been so on point, especially if it goes to the ground. If he wants to take it there, I think he can take it there, and I think he'll have some success down there as well. But he trusts his hands. He's got great stand-up. He's, a mean dude on the feet. He could take a punch for sure because he got flush kicked right on the chin by Jai Herbert, dropped, and just immediately got back up, wrestled his way back up to his feet, cleared the cobwebs, and ended up just knocking Jai Herbert out cold, like, I previously mentioned. So, everything that you've seen out of Topuria, he's got, it's tough to pinpoint an area where Emmett can have success outside of shutting his lights off, which even Topuria has proved that it's going to be tough to do that. So, in this matchup, I think Topuria is just going to be, when they come together, I think he's going to land the cleaner shots. And I think Emmett, if anyone's got a chin that's going to go out of the two, it's going to be Emmett. I just don't think he's going to be able to knock Topuria out. I think Topuria is going to be able to wear on him, and he's not going to be afraid to go in there with Emmett's power because he trusts his boxing that much. So I got Topuria winning the fight. Don't have a bet on it because it's really juiced, but I see Ilia Topuria taking this one home, setting himself up to be in the top 5 of the featherweight division and possibly a title shot in the future. So that concludes it for the full card breakdown of UFC Jacksonville. As I mentioned before, follow your boy on the socials, on Twitter, YouTube, betmma.picks. It is, or betmma.tips, I'm sorry. It is Bobby Betts Fights. So signing off. Hope everyone enjoys the card tomorrow. A little brunch card. Get your waffles, get your mimosas, sit down, and let's watch some violence. Bobby Betts, signing off.